So Ernie Irvan, how did he wind up in your car? Or was he the only guy that you looked at, or were there maybe other candidates?
Well, when Rick left at the Fall Bristol race, he told me, I knew he was leaving. I think it was it 88?
89.
89. Oh, he told me, he said, right there's a guy you might think about putting in your car because he's a hard race car driver.
Talking about Ernie?
Ernie.
Okay.
And he was driving for, what's his name at
DK?
Richmond? No. At that time he was driving for DK, but he went to drive for Junie Donlevy.
Junie Donlevy. Okay.
And this was like 2 or 3 races in the season. Well, I called Junie, and I told Junie I was interested in Rick. What was he going to do? He said, Larry, I'm glad you called me. He said, we thought we had this sponsorship deal put together, but it's fallen through, and I'd love for you to get this boy to drive your car because I think he could have success. So we called him, and before we hired him, we went to Atlanta to test. At that time, you could test the week prior to the race.
With Ernie?
With Ernie.
Going into 1990?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. We went to Atlanta and tested before the Atlanta race.
Okay.
Before the Atlanta race.
Yes.
And that was like the 3rd race or 4th race or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Okay. We went down and spent 3 days, and it rained. Rain. First day. Rained the second day. 3rd day it was raining, and Ernie wanted to get in that car so bad and drive it around the racetrack that he rode that tractor with a brush on it, and he'd go out and try to drive the racetrack.
He was driving the track himself, was he really?
Yes, he was. You ask him. And we put him in the car, finally, at 4 o'clock, and he made 5 laps for us. And we was bad fast. So we said, okay, we'll let you drive Atlanta. And at that time, Ernie was working over there putting bleachers in the Charlotte Motor Speedway. I think that was his job. And he said, okay. So we go down there and we start on last year's points, which was, I think it was 20th or something like that. And we ended up finishing 2nd. But during that race, I thought my car had gained 100 horsepower. It just makes everybody look better. You look smarter. Your crew chief looks great, and your pit crew looks better. But I'm telling you, he put the metal to the floor, and it showed us how fast our car was.
So you didn't test him going into the 1990 season?
No.
Okay, all right. That's what I thought I heard you say.
No.
Okay.
His first time in our race car was at Atlanta at that test for 5 laps.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right. He finishes well in Atlanta. I think he finished 3rd. Then all of a sudden he reels off several top 10 qualifying runs in a row. And all of a sudden Morgan-McClure Motorsports is competitive. Right. And I'm talking about competitive.
Right.
What did Ernie Irvan bring to the table that had been missing?
All he brought was his abilities. He didn't bring any money. He didn't bring any past experience because he hadn't driven that many race cars, with the exception of the cars he had driven on the West Coast before he came to, Cup racing or Busch racing. But he just had that desire to win. He didn't want anybody to beat him, and he could get behind. He loved to follow. He'd follow Earnhardt. He didn't want to follow him, but he'd love to follow him because he could learn from him. And later that, he could run. He knew how to run, knew how to race. And then we helped him where his shortcomings were. I mean, he would exhaust himself sometime, and we had to. I mean, after a race, you'd have to pull him out. You'd have to help him out of the car. You remember seeing Darrell Waltrip and some of these guys at Bristol. You have to pull them out of the car.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like that at Michigan or anywhere. I don't know. He'd come out and he'd give it everything he had, and that was nice,